On this episode, coolant and downpipes. What up YouTube and welcome back. Today we are going to get the coolant lines ran for the turbos. We're going to go ahead and make some downpipes to finally connect the exhaust all back together. But first, let's take out one of the turbos and get the coolant lines ran. Alright, so I already went ahead and took out the passenger side turbo because this line right here is the outlet for the coolant. So this pretty much goes from here into the heater core, into the steam vents, and basically it loops all back around. So we're gonna move down to here, clamp off both sides so the coolant doesn't leak out, cut it, put a fitting in there, run the fitting straight up, put another hose and run it straight into the turbo that's going to be sitting right here again. So let's go ahead, clamp off the hose, and we'll go ahead and get the hose cut and the new hose put on. Alright, so we got our hose clamps. Put one right there. Alright, so we got where I'm going to cut it clamped off. So what I'm going to do is get some side cutters and snip that little spot right there. I'm pretty sure they're going to have a little bit of coolant leak, or will spill. But other than that, these clamps should keep the coolant from just pouring out everywhere. So let's go ahead and cut that hose off and get our other hose on. Alright, went ahead and grabbed some pig mats. I don't know, whatever you guys call them. I've called them pig mats. Gonna shove it under there so that whatever coolant leaks out, it'll leak onto here so I don't have a big old mess to clean up. Alright, so before I go ahead and connect the hoses together, let me show you what I've got here. So this part is going to be the fittings that go in between the hose clamp on each side, another 5/8 line. So I got a 5/8 fitting to a 3/8 fitting, then another barb fitting, and then to a steel braided line that goes to a 6/8 fitting. So basically, when it's sitting in the car, it's gonna go in there, the coolant, come up this way, and it's not gonna have this massive of a bend, but it's gonna come up, probably go around, and then sit right into the turbo. So let's go ahead and get this side installed and get some clamps. All right, so it's time to make the coolant cut. Wish me luck. Alright, and the hose is separated. Alright, let's slide my hose clamps on over. Hopefully I give myself enough room to put the fitting in. Alright, we'll start with the hardest part first, because this one I can move out of the way. Alright, time to tighten down my hose clamp. Alright, so that side is tightened down. Not going nowhere. Now to move on to this side. Alright, so now that we got that one tightened down, let's go ahead and tighten this one down. Alright, that should be good. Loosen the clamps and then we can check to see if there's any coolant leaks. Alright, and there you can see pretty much where the T-joint is at. It just runs straight up. And then it's just hanging over there for right now. So what we're gonna do is get the turbo back in and run the coolant line to the turbo along there, and then to the inlet of that turbo, and then we'll get our coolant reservoir installed too. So let's go ahead and we'll get the turbo back installed. Alright, so I went ahead and put the turbo in here loose for now. I got to install the coolant feed and then the coolant out fittings. This is what they look like. A Banjo 6AN fitting that just goes on the side of the turbo. Alright, and we got our coolant fittings on and tightened down. We'll go ahead and get our return line installed. Alright, now I tighten down the return line. Okay, so we got our feed on and tightened down. Now let's get our V-band on. Alright, turbo's installed again. Reclocked the compressor side so that it's facing straight down, so a 90-degree elbow right underneath the headlights. Got clear axis for the downpipe, so it's probably gonna need a little straight than a 45. I don't know if you could see, but there's enough room so that nothing is touching. We got a clear shot for the hoses. One's gonna go there, the other one's gonna go underneath there. So this one's gonna come out here, wrap around, and then go that way. Here there's like a plastic piece, so this will be covered so you won't see the hose. But for now, let's go ahead and get everything all back together on this turbo, get it all tightened down, and then we'll work on the exit port, run it that way, and to the inlet side of the driver's side turbo. So tighten down first. Alright, we'll go ahead and get the wastegate back in, which is going to be fun because this thing is hard to push down and tighten down everything at the same time. And to think, I think there's only a 7-pound spring in here, and it's just hard to push and do all this at the same time. There we go. Alright, we're good. Wastegate done. And I don't know if you could see, but there is a little barb fitting right there. And then there's a little barb fitting down there for the turbo, so all I gotta do is run a vacuum hose from there to there, and they can do their boosting this together. But let's go ahead and get our coolant installed. Maybe we could trim this line too. Make that a little bit shorter so that it doesn't stick out like that. So before I go ahead and screw this down, we're gonna shorten this hose a little bit off camera. So I went ahead and cut the line a whole lot shorter because I really didn't need that much. I think I made all the coolant lines extra long just in case I need to cut, and yeah, pretty sure all of them are gonna need to be cut, but goes down, around, and in. And the downpipe, if you can see my hand, has perfect clearance to go straight and then 45 down. And if anything, what I'll do is I can always wrap the downpipes just on this area so nothing overheats or melts. But now let's move on to this fitting, because this one's going to be a little bit harder. I may take off the fitting, get everything tightened down first, and then put it on there so that I have room to tighten everything and maneuver it. So I'm going to go ahead and take that fitting off, and then I'll show you guys the hose I made that'll run along there and then go to the turbo over there. Alright, so one thing I want to do before I finish the cooling system is I want to go ahead and start making the downpipes so I know how much room I have on this side to drop down, and on this side I need to know how much room I got to drop down and then go out towards that area. So I'm going to cut some pipe off camera, do some test fitting, and then I will come back and show you guys what I got for both sides. So we will start off with the driver's side because there's a whole lot more room in here to maneuver than there is on that side, because that side's a whole lot more cramped. So driver's side first. Alright, so I went ahead, cut some pipe, test fitted, and this will be the downpipe, or at least what I came up with. So it'll fit right down in here. I already made some marks, so it'll match up there, and it goes straight down and where I need it to go. So basically it's gonna go down a little bit of curve because it hits the bottom of this collector. So this little bend right here goes around that, and then this rides pretty much right along the frame rail right to where the steering rack is at. So what I'm gonna do is take this part off, get all the tape cleaned off, wipe it all down, and we're gonna get this all tacked together, and I will test fit it and hope that it all doesn't shift or anything in the process. So I'm gonna go ahead and start tacking this together. Alright, so now what I'm gonna do is we go ahead and throw a couple tacks on here. See, I got my marks on each one. I'm gonna try to get it lined up as best as possible. Throw a couple tacks on there, and then test fit it to make sure everything is lined up and hasn't shifted. So this will be fun trying to hold this and tack it all at the same time. Alright, well, I don't know if you've seen that, because I was probably in the way, but there's my first tack. Now let's throw on another one on the side here. And there is my second tack. I'll probably do one more just to be on the safe side. Last tack with a little bit of filler just to make sure. All right, 3 tacks pretty much all the way around. So we'll go ahead, put this on the car, test fit this piece. If they're still good, we'll move on to wherever my next connection is. I don't remember with the tape on there. But first, let's test fit. Okay, everything's good. Now, all right, so with the tape off, I'm going to test fit, make sure everything's good, make my marks, and then we'll tack these 2 pieces together. All right. Got my marks made, a little crooked, but that's where I need it to be. So we'll throw a couple tacks on there and test fit again. Alright, so we got our tacks on this one. Time to go test fit this now. Okay, so far everything is going good. Now we remove the tape on this one, make our mark, tack it, then do the same for this one. And then once the car's up in the air, we'll worry about coming out to the actual exhaust. So instead of moving far ahead, let's take the tape off of here. All right, so we got the 1 tack. Now I'm gonna test fit it just to make sure, because really wasn't much room to get those lines straight enough. So let me make sure. All right, so tack was a success. Let's throw a couple more on there, and then we'll move on to the last pipe. All right, that tack is a little bit big because almost blew a hole through it, so one more tack right here should do it. And final tack is there. That'll be good enough. Now for this one, I'm gonna just cut a little spot and tack it through the tape. All right, as you can see, I cut myself a little window open, and the pipe's pretty hot, so I'm gonna throw a tack right there real quick, as the pipe is hot. All right, last tack, so I'm gonna remove the tape, throw a couple more tacks on there, test fit, and if it all goes well, we'll weld everything out. Alright, so now that we got everything all tacked up, let's test fit one more time to make sure it's all good. And if it's all good, we'll weld it all out. Alright, so I went ahead, test fit, everything looks good. So now what we're gonna do is weld this out completely. We'll start with the bottom and then work our way up. So we'll go from here to here, flip it around, and then basically just keep working out the rest of the pipe. Alright, so I went ahead and welded out the beginning stages of the downpipe. Wasn't gonna bore you guys with that, but if you want to see me cut the pipes and weld it out, let me know in the comments below. If you guys like that kind of thing, maybe I'll mix it in a little bit, but it's completely welded out. Now let's go ahead, test fit this on the car and see if it fits up nicely. All right, actually it looks pretty good on the car. It's not bolted down, but yeah, it looks pretty good. Wraps down. It just misses this collector right here. I can barely even get a finger in between there. And then you can't see, but it literally stops like right there, and a little bit farther back there's like a little hole that's between the rack and basically the body of the car that I can fit right through and connect it to the exhaust itself. So now we'll go ahead and cut some pipe and get to welding and tacking on the passenger side. All right, moving on to the passenger side. Cut some pipe. Got it all taped together how I want it. So we'll go ahead, throw a couple tacks on there. Same thing, test fit. If it works, then we can continue on with the coolant. Well, let's go ahead, throw a couple tacks, because there is the flange, then there's a pie cut, and then this whole 45 right here that I cut short to get it to turn the right way. I'll show you what it looks like once I tacked it and put it back on the car. So let's first tack it up. Alright, so as you can see right back there, I cut out just a little window so I can tack that part because I don't want to lose the shape that I got here. So squeeze that together, throw a tack on there. Alright, first tack's good. Now there's another spot on here somewhere too where the pipes connect. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut like another window, you know what, right there, since it already looks like it's ripping apart. We'll cut a window right here. Grab a little piece of filler wire just in case. Burn the tape, but tack together. Now we'll go ahead and test fit to make sure it still fits in there correctly, and then we will weld this out. Alright, as you guys can see from there, the downpipe is in. Hard to tell, but look how close it is. I think they're actually touching. Or there might be another little finger hole to just fit your finger through. But same thing, it pretty much, it literally follows the shape of the manifold. And it stops to about right here with a downward angle. So goes from there, goes over, let's see, right there, you see the oil feed? Just barely touches it, so I'm definitely going to be wrapping these pipes. But you see it? It wraps right along. And like I said, it stops to about right here. So we'll go ahead, take this off and get it fully welded out. And then we can actually lift the car up and start putting pipes together to get it attached to those two right up there. Then it comes out, around, under the axle, and out to the back end. Welding time. Alright, so we got our pipe. We'll go ahead, we'll weld this all around completely, test fit to make sure, and then we'll get this put on the car. From this end, we'll continue on making the rest of the pipe. But for now, we'll just weld this out. Alright, there you go. Completely welded out. Now, I don't claim to be an awesome welder, so if they don't look good to you, well, don't care. They'll work. So now I'm gonna go ahead, just finish off this, test fit, and then we'll move on to finishing off the coolant system. Alright, so the passenger side downpipe is completely welded out all around. Gave it time to cool down, so we'll go ahead and test fit this on the car, and if it works, the exhaust is that much closer to being done. Test fit time. Time to test fit this on the car and see how it fits. It's a tight squeeze for sure. Alright, so downpipe is on, as you can see. And then, again, goes under the manifold and stops right here. Alright, so with the downpipe's done, I moved on to the coolant part of the turbos. So I got a barb fitting that goes from there. Basically, that's the outlet side of the turbo. Ran nicely along into here. Got these two hoses zip tied because this is for the steam vents. Goes through, down the inlet side of the turbo. Got another barb fitting. And then the outlet wraps around and then goes into the side of the coolant tank. Now for the barb fittings, the only reason why that's like that is because the turbo kits that came with the fittings, the banjos, for some reason were too small. So I had extra banjo fittings, 2 of them, and they fit. So I just took one of each. That side has got the inlet, barb fitting, and then the actual banjo fitting as the outlet. So now it'll be removing this carefully so I don't spill coolant all over the place. So let's go ahead, figure out the best possible way to drain this and hook it up to the tank, and basically the cooling system will be done. And then we can pretty much move on to connecting each downpipe to the exhaust. So let's go ahead and get this removed and out of the way. Alright, so as you guys can see, the coolant tank is finally gone. I put this little plastic piece back just to make it look like the engine's complete. Here is the new tank. Got a cap. Here's the breather. Here's the coolant return. This, I don't know which hose this goes to, but it goes to the top of the radiator. This hose for the steam vents. Turbo inlet. Down there. That hose right here runs down, goes that way, and goes to the lower radiator hose. So I already tested it by squeezing the hose, and I got the coolant to go from that hose right there around just by squeezing it, and I got it to come out this little hole, or well, this exit port. So at least I know the cooling system works. And that too, I was squeezing the hose and it was sucking down the coolant, so that works. It's not leaking. So far, none of the coolant was leaking. Now, I'm going to put on the downpipes, and next episode, we'll get to making the exhaust. Alright guys, one step closer to the car starting. Pretty much anything that has to do with being under the engine is just about done. Coolant's done, oil's done, return's done. The only thing I still have to do is vacuum lines and boost lines, but we'll save that for another episode, maybe next episode. But for sure, next episode, we will be connecting the downpipes to the actual exhaust. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, comment. Just do what you gotta do. And as always, if you didn't like it, it's too late. You already watched it. Peace!